Hi everyone, my video is meant to be something of an ode to the casserole. So rather than homing in on a particular thesis, I'm taking more of a topical approach. In this video, I will briefly explore the importance of casserole dishes within the context of my childhood community and then within the broader American culture. So today I am choosing to show you my mom's baked mac and cheese casserole recipe. This is my version of it. The ingredients in this meal are relatively simple. So macaroni noodles, cheddar cheese, flour, butter, milk, ham, steak, and eggs. This casserole was, and it still is, a family favorite. So my mom, she would cook it for special occasions such as birthdays, holidays, and then when friends would come over. So when I had friends come over, I would often request this meal because I knew it's, who wouldn't love it, right? It's noodles and cheese and butter. I can definitely see why my mom chose to make this meal as a dinner option. It's really easy to acquire the ingredients for this meal at our local grocery store, and then most of the items were affordable staples that could be used for multiple meals within the week, right? So my mom, she would buy a gallon of milk for, say, the roux, and then she would be able to use it later in the week for her pancakes. The majority of ingredients in this casserole, you might have noticed, are processed foods. So cheese, noodles, pre-cooked ham, and crackers for the top. The high fat and salt content of this meal ensure that this recipe is always a crowd pleaser. My mom, when she would bring the casserole to the table at dinner time, my siblings and I, we would never complain, right? I mean, this meal is so delicious. Factoring in for prep time, the dish only requires about an hour or so to make. And as a working mom with 5 children, the convenience of this meal surely appealed to my mom. The appeal of casseroles were not limited to my home, but were rather a broader phenomenon during my childhood. When I think about the church I attended as a child, I think of potlucks. I think about Sunday potlucks in the basement of our church building. We would have one pretty much every Sunday. We would come together and share a meal, and casseroles, they were overrepresented, possibly, if it's possible, at these meals, along with Jell-O salads. The writer Elizabeth Aldrich explores the ascent of the casserole in American society in her book, Casseroles, Can Openers, and Jell-O. According to Aldrich, processed foods arose in popularity during the 1950s in correspondence with the innovation and popularity of TV. A cookbook boom also occurred during the middle of the 20th century in the US, with the original Good Housekeeping cookbook selling for over 1 million copies. These books were filled with a preponderance of casserole recipes, many of which called for processed ingredients. Exploring the importance of casseroles within the US in an academic essay, Lucy Long, a folklorist and the director of the Center for Food and Culture, brings up an interesting point about processed foods. She notes that most explorations of regional foods focus upon terroir, that is, the taste of the place, that reflects the origins of the ingredients used to make a particular food. In the US, many of our foods are commercially mass-produced and distributed, which makes it hard to identify the origin of any given ingredient. On one hand, such homogeneity can be convenient, like when you hope to replicate a meal from your childhood, even though you no longer live in the same region of your upbringing, like myself. But on the other hand, this lack of distinctness alienates us from regions that produce our food and the people who are responsible for producing our food. The casserole occupies, in my opinion, kind of an interesting niche in culinary creation because it reflects a particular culture that is low to middle class American culture in the mid 20th to early 21st century. Yet many of the ingredients used within the casseroles are not easily traced to a place or their origin. From a spiritual perspective, casseroles can symbolize hospitality and evoke a sense of belonging, and community. They are often prepared for family meals or group gatherings in the US, and their no-fuss preparation it's unpretentious, right? And it's welcoming to most people. It might sound silly to say, but creating and sharing a casserole is a way of honestly sharing God's love and reflecting it throughout your community. However, it should also be said that the standardized ingredients found within a typical casserole point to the disconcerting fact that there is also something woefully generic about this type of food. It is not possible, really, to think of my mom's macaroni and cheese casserole as particular to my mother or my hometown or even my home state. Homemade mac and cheese is something that belongs to the broader American culture, right? By existing in the natural world, we can see that God revels in particularity. The wonderfully particular aspect of regional food is lost with the casserole, and thus something about the wonderfully particular aspect of God's created world is also lost. So it's the case that casseroles, from a spiritual perspective, represent something beautiful, communal, and accessible. Casseroles also present something standardized, homogenized, and, dare I say it, something unimaginative. Throughout this video, I've tried to convey the importance of casseroles, especially my mom's mac and cheese casserole, to my upbringing. I've also discussed casseroles as a cultural phenomenon, as a symbol of hospitality, and as an artifactual indication that the US is often indifferent about the God-given regional particularity of the natural world. So hopefully you've learned something interesting, and thank you for taking the time to listen. Bye for now.